I want to bring on my next guest with me now. His name is Wally Bock. Wally Bock, how are you, my friend?
Superb. Happy birthday. Happy anniversary. Or whatever.
Exactly. To be only 16 again, huh?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know about that. But
I'd take 21 for a while. I don't know about 16.
yeah, 21 was good.
Yeah, 21 was really good. So, Guy is putting on the chat stream some of your stuff. 3starleadership.com and the blog at 3starleadership.com. You know, Wally and I, everyone goes back a long, and I go back a long way, and we go back to when I was an employee at Chevron, so longer than 16 years ago. And Wally was doing work, was delivering training, a couple of programs for Chevron as an external consultant. And then we sort of weren't connected at all for a long time, and then along came blogging. And we got reconnected, and we've chatted on the phone, and you've been a guest on the Remarkable Leadership Learning System guest call, and you've been your blog has been one of the finalists for the best leadership blog, I think, a couple of years. It's a fabulous blog, and I'm just glad that you're joining us. So you know, you didn't give me anything that you want to talk about, Wally. So here's what I want to do. I want you... First, you have to answer whatever question I give you. Here's my first question. Two-part question. Now, earlier, I showed people my library here, and we were talking a little bit about reading. And one of the posts in my 16 lessons that I've learned in 16 years was the importance of reading and why I read. So here's my question. I gave you a little time. Question is, what are you reading now? And the second part of the question is, what's one other book you think all leaders ought to read?
Okay, well, I'm currently reading books for review a lot because I do that. The current book up for review is John Spence's Awesomely Simple, which I will get to review next week. So that's the business book that I'm reading.
And I already recommended it on our newsletter and on our blog. It's a fabulous book. So I'm looking forward to reading what you've got to say about it too.
Well, it looks that way to me so far. On the other side of my life, I'm reading a 3-part alternative history of which Newt Gingrich is one of the authors.
It's like what happened if something else changed, right?
Right. In this case, what would have happened had the Confederacy won at Gettysburg?
Right.
And it's a 3-book series starting with a book called Gettysburg, and it is phenomenal. It's the best alternative history I've ever read.
Awesome. So it just takes us up to now, starting with that fork in the road.
Right. Well, actually, I'm not done with it yet, so I don't know where it's all going to end.
Okay.
But I know that he's doing it perfectly. He's got the personalities right, he's got the tactics right.
Well, I've heard of it. I haven't read it. So the first book in the series is called Gettysburg. So I'm going to say the easiest way to do that is go to Amazon and figure it out.
I think so.
And so that's awesome. So and you're reading, or you're about, and Awesomely Simple. Actually, after I reviewed Awesomely Simple, John Spence and I had a phone conversation. Seems like a great guy, and he'll probably be a guest on our show in our learning system in the future, I'm sure. And I'm looking forward. So the book review will be on your blog, right?
The book review will be on the blog, yes.
And you post.
You still told me that I had to pick one book.
Oh yeah, I got that too. Yeah.
Ever.
So, well, or a book that I didn't actually say it that way because I'm not good at that best book ever thing. Like if you tell me what are the 5 CDs I can take to a desert island, I don't know how to answer that question. But so we'll shift.
The one book that I always recommend is Peter Drucker's Effective Executive, because I'm still reading it after 40 plus years, and I still find good stuff in it. And I've never had anybody I recommend it to say, you know, why do you get books? They come back with praise instead.
Absolutely.
That's my recommendation.
That's fabulous. So I know the other question that I want to ask you. The other question I want to ask you is related to a lot of what your work has been with, if I remember correctly, with police officers. Is that correct?
Police sergeants, yeah.
That's what I thought. And I've done a little bit of work with them, and Guy, sitting on the other side of this camera, has as well. But you've done a lot more than either of us. I'm guessing that everyone at the party here would be interested in sort of what's a key lesson you've learned from police sergeants about leadership?
I think the important thing about police sergeants is that they have to supervise highly individualistic people in highly stressful circumstances with
Zero options.
I mean, you don't get a bonus for writing more tickets. You don't get a bonus for...
Contrary to popular belief, Wally, some people think they're on quota, but...
Well, there are places where they are rewarded, but none of the people I work with. But that's significant because what it means is that a police sergeant, to do their job well, first of all, has to understand the intrinsic value of your job. The thing is that most police sergeants supervise people who are not right in front of them. They're all over the street. So you've really got to let people go. And if I would give you lessons to learn from a police sergeant, number one is that you don't need financial rewards to reward you. You can do an awful lot with praise and assignments and preferments and so forth. And secondly, that you don't have to have line of sight to supervise. If you've got good people and you know when to show up and watch them, you can do very well. The third lesson is the biggest lesson for all supervisors, which is all of the great sergeants that I studied showed up a lot. And that gave them the chance to have conversations, it gave them a chance to learn about the people, gave their people a chance to learn about them, it gave them a chance to spot the problems when they were small, when they were easy to solve. If there is one key supervisory behavior, showing up a lot is it.
Showing up a lot is it. You gotta love that, right? So earlier we heard, and I don't know if you were on, earlier we heard leaders need to suck it up, and now we're hearing you just gotta show up, and both of those things are absolutely true.
Well, I think you show up because you can't do the work of leadership without you. You can't do it without having conversations. You can't do it if the only time you show up is to bring evidence. You got to be there more often. If you're in a teleworking situation, if any kind of touching base that allows you to have some real dialogue with the people that you work with.
I think that's absolutely right. I couldn't have said it better. Wouldn't try. Wally, is there any, I've got something I want to do here in a second, and because I know that you're an avid reader, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to ask you that question. That was actually a question, everyone, that I hoped to ask most of the guests, was what are you reading, or what do you think we ought to read? But I know you are an avid reader, and you've shared a lot of that with us on your blog. How would you answer this question for people? I don't find time to read. I know I ought to read, Wally, but have you looked at my calendar? I just don't have time to read. What's your advice to people about that? To get over that?
Well, I think there's two things about it. One is, and I deal with this with coaching clients, you have to make time to read. It doesn't happen a lot. But if you assume that it will happen, it won't happen. So I have clients who make time whenever they go on airplanes. I have people who set aside half an hour a day. But you've got to carve the time out. It won't carve itself out. That, I think, would be number one, because I don't think you can get away without it. There's too much going on. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to read, books from front to back. So some of the other things that I think are really good is a good business magazine like The Economist points you to an awful lot of stuff, including book-like things. Good book reviews, the kind that get done on some of the better web blogs out there, can tell you what books make sense for you, and you get some of the lessons without actually reading the book.
Right.
But it starts with carving it out. If you assume you can't, you won't. If you assume you can, you'll find a way.
Yeah, and it's not going to happen automatically. I think the thing is, it's not going to happen automatically. You've got to make a choice. You've got to do something. You've got to suck it up, as we heard earlier, right?
Not only will it not happen automatically, it will not happen someday.
That's right. I'm guessing sometime in your life you've read Dennis Waitley, or at least know who Dennis Waitley is, and he always talks about Someday I'll, right?
Yeah.
And there is no such geographic place as Someday I'll, for sure. So I'm going to transition, Wally. I want to thank you again so much. And I tell you what, everyone, if you don't know Wally Bock, you need to follow his blog. You've seen that in the chat stream. You need to follow him on Twitter, and you've seen that in the chat stream. And we'll get all that stuff to you again in the after party favors. But Wally, thank you so much for joining us.
It's been great fun. I'm honored to be a part of this. I'm really excited for you, Kevin. It's been a remarkable 16.
All right. Thank you so much, Wally. I appreciate it, and have a great weekend, my friend.
You too, sir.
All right.